Good evening. I am so glad that you are here with me tonight to talk about the City Nature Challenge because it is one of my favorite things that I do each year. Super, super fun. So I'm going to give you an introduction to how the City Nature Challenge works and to how you can use iNaturalist to have a really great experience as I do every year. My name is Deborah Barber, and I'm the Director of Land Conservation with the Nature Conservancy's Maryland chapter. And I'll be sharing a little bit of information later on tonight about how you can find out about nature preserves within the City Nature Challenge DC project area. I welcome people to use iNaturalist on Nature Conservancy preserves, but you can also use iNaturalist right in your own neighborhood, or if you even have creepy crawlies in your compost pile or your basement, it works great there too. And you can just learn from iNaturalist using it any place in the world that you want to go and use it to observe nature. There is so much to see, and I was a pretty good naturalist already since I work in the conservation field, but iNaturalist has really sharpened my observation abilities. It's helped me to keep far better track of what I see out there in the world, especially as I'm aging and my memory is declining. I love the way that iNaturalist kind of gives me a little set of like breadcrumbs through all my forays in nature. I use the platform in so many different ways, and it's led to some wonderful experiences, some new friendships with really cool people. So I hope that you have as positive an experience as I have had with it for the last 4 years or so that I've been involved with the City Nature Challenge. So let's talk a little bit about citizen science. Citizen science is an activity during which anybody, whatever their educational level, observes the world and gathers data on a topic that they care about. And some examples are observing the weather, observing plants and animals the way we do with iNaturalist. There's a citizen science project called the King Tide Project, in which volunteers go out and they take photos of high tide at different places so that we can track how much sea level is rising over time. There are many, many different citizen science projects that people can connect with through a couple of platforms. SciStarter and Zooniverse are a couple that I can name, which are kind of portals to help you shop for citizen science projects. So focus on learning to use iNaturalist between now and the City Nature Challenge, which is at the end of April, beginning of May. But after you have crushed that, then I urge you to go on to other citizen science projects and continue the practice of observing the world year round. You will learn a lot and you'll have a great time. So as I mentioned, everybody can be a citizen scientist. Many of citizen science projects are organized by professional scientists who are using the fact that citizen scientists can provide many, many more eyes and ears than a single person or a single organization can provide. And then other citizen science projects are organized by non-professional scientists. There's a wide range. Many of them are very kind of easy entry point, and some of them are more challenging. But what links citizen science projects together is that they all connect us with the world around us. In the case of iNaturalist, iNaturalist connects us with the living world. Many citizen science projects teach us more about our local environment. Through participating, these projects are supporting community well-being and the environment. And that information collected through citizen science projects helps decision makers like park managers, Nature Conservancy land managers like me, and municipalities to make better, more informed decisions. And citizen science projects can contribute to scientific research as well. So iNaturalist is a platform that helps us either explore on our own at our own pace, or in many cases, iNaturalist is used as the information collecting tool for bioblitzes. A bioblitz is a survey of a defined area, for example, a park, a forest, a city block even, in which participants inventory as many species as possible in a short amount of time. And iNaturalist is just a perfect platform to use for BioBlitzes. So the City Nature Challenge is essentially a BioBlitz of the entire DC metropolitan area taken over a 4-day period at the very end of April, starting right after midnight on a Friday morning, going through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then ending right before midnight on the first Monday in May. You can, later on, you can go to citynaturechallenge.org, the address that you see in the bottom left of this slide, to learn more about the global effort. And we have a local DC area website supporting our local City Nature Challenge at citynaturechallengedc.org, the address that you see in the bottom right. So here is how the schedule goes this year. April 29th, which is Friday, is the first day of the observation period. And during that time, I plan to be out in the field as much as possible. I have told my family, don't expect anything but takeout that weekend. And I'm going to try to be one of the first to post an observation right after the clock strikes midnight, Thursday night, Friday morning. There's often a few of us out there, us diehards, who are out there seeing who can take and upload the first picture of this year's City Nature Challenge. All the way through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and up until midnight Monday night, any observations made during that period in the DC metropolitan area will count. If you are using a cell phone to take pictures, then those pictures are automatically tagged with the date, the time and date, and also the location information if you have the settings set up properly on your cell phone. So if they're taken within that time and the location, which I'll show you a map of in a few minutes, they're automatically included in the City Nature Challenge when they're uploaded to iNaturalist. So after that very intense observation period, in which I hope we get kinder weather than we have at the moment. It'll still happen if it's raining, but it's a lot easier to make more and more comfortable observations if it's not raining. And then the week after that, May 3rd through 8th, is our chance to upload any photos that we haven't gotten uploaded during the observation period. If you're like me, you focus on making observations and taking pictures during that observation period, and then it often takes me multiple days to get them all uploaded. And that's also a chance for people, not just only in the DC metropolitan area, but worldwide, to help identify those observations. And then on Monday, May 9th, the results will be announced. So you see here at the bottom, just a few of the many, many organizations that collaborate with Anna and me and a couple of others who are the City Nature Challenge lead organizers for the DC metropolitan area. All these organizations have sponsored organized outings over the years to guide people through areas on the map that they're responsible for organizing and helping them to participate in the City Nature Challenge. So if you look at the bright green outline on this map, and to orient you, here is DC right here, this little diamond. The Washington, DC metropolitan area that we use for the City Nature Challenge is quite large. It includes DC, it includes all of these Maryland counties, in fact, all the way up through Frederick County to the Pennsylvania line. Montgomery, Prince George's, Charles, and Calvert counties, so a fair amount of Southern Maryland. And then for us Virginians, multiple counties in Northern Virginia, and even this little piece of West Virginia, Jefferson County, where it dips down right here. So that's a total of something like, I think, 23 counties. So again, if you are taking pictures on your cell phone and you have your settings set to allow location services to be on while you're taking photos, then that location is attached to the photo's metadata. And when you upload your photo to iNaturalist, the system knows where the photo was taken. So again, if you take photos during that observation period, April 29th through May 2nd, within this geographic location, your observations on iNaturalist will automatically count towards the City Nature Challenge. So why should you do this? Well, we all could benefit from more time outdoors. Um, I know that after 2 years of COVID, I am still working from home. So there are times that sadly I do not get myself up from my desk until it's time to have dinner, which is terrible. I should really exercise more self-discipline and get myself out there a little bit more often. I do try to get outside every day and make 1 or 2 observations on iNaturalist, or at least get outside, get a little bit of sun on me and get some fresh air. So a little bit more outdoors activity is good for all of us. It was even before COVID, and it's important even more so now. And by participating in this particular citizen science project, you will discover so much about the many species that make their home in the DC metropolitan area. I am so proud of how much biodiversity is in our highly urbanized area. And I just am always discovering new things every time I go outside and look. You'll be supporting scientific research because the information that's submitted to iNaturalist goes up into a global database that tracks species locations. And that has been used in hundreds of research papers worldwide. So you really are contributing to hard science. You'll learn a cool new app, and you will help our metropolitan area continue to do really well with respect to other cities that are participating in the City Nature Challenge. Now, it's got challenge in the name, but we're de-emphasizing the competitive aspect, especially during this time of COVID, in which we don't want anybody to feel pressured to do anything that might be unsafe for them. We tend to refer to the City Nature Challenge as a friendly global competition, with a slight variation on that message this last couple of years of COVID. We're just saying, get out there and safely and comfortable observe as many species as you can, but we're not looking quite so much at the stats of different cities compared to each other. Still super fun though, and super motivating. So we'll be looking for all kinds of live organisms or evidence of live organisms. We're looking for animals, we're looking for plants, we're looking for fungi. We're looking for not only the organisms themselves, but again, evidence of them, holes, nests, scat. We can look all kinds of places. We'll look for signs of life in parks, your own backyard. You can find a ton of stuff if you are a homeowner. Stoops, the little pollinators that come to a potted plant that you might have on your front steps, community gardens and neighborhoods. You don't have to go out into wild nature to find all kinds of really cool stuff, but if you do want to use iNaturalist in wild nature, it'll help you to make sense of it. Any place that wild plants, animals, and fungi make their homes. So if you look here, you see what looks like a sea of green, but iNaturalist really helps you to zoom in on the details and to start to see individual organisms in that sea of green that we often encounter when we go outdoors. We've got a pawpaw tree in bloom here. We've got a little box elder bug here. And when you're using iNaturalist, you can learn the names of a lot of these things that you used to be unable to distinguish from each other. You can learn so much. So how do you do it? Well, let me tell you a little bit about how iNaturalist helps to support the City Nature Challenge. Okay, so who uses iNaturalist? People all over the world. Several million people around the world are using iNaturalist. Many of them use iNaturalist in its app form, because iNaturalist is both an iPhone and an Android app. It's also a platform that you can access through your desktop, and it does amazing things. iNaturalist does amazing things on your smartphone, but it does even more amazing things on the desktop. And people are using this worldwide to learn about nature and share their observations, learn from each other, and contribute to science. So that is actually an old figure. This is, I think, from our slide a couple of years ago, and I couldn't find the modern equivalent of this number, but it's even more people now using iNaturalist. So what do you need to use iNaturalist to participate in the City Nature Challenge? You need the camera on your cell phone or a digital camera. You need access to the internet, and if you have are using it on your cell phone, then download the free iNaturalist app and make a user account before the City Nature Challenge starts. I urge you to do that soon, and to just go outside and start practicing using it so that when the City Nature Challenge comes, you are fluent in the use of the iNaturalist app. So when you go to iNaturalist, you create an account, you make a username. It can contain your name or not. This is not my username. My username is Deborah Barber. I didn't mind doing something that was kind of similar to my own name, but you'll see some other names that give you no idea of the real identity of the person, and that's completely fine. Some of the usernames are really fun. So when you have the iNaturalist app on your smartphone, or if you're going out and you're using a camera and you're going to upload your photos on the desktop, it's going to look kind of like this. This is how the iPhone app looks. You go outside, you take a picture, you upload the picture to iNaturalist. And one of the really cool things about iNaturalist is that it makes suggestions about what that species is in your photo based on computer vision. And there are multiple apps that can help you identify stuff. One of them is called Picture This. Google can help you identify things that are that you take photos of. iNaturalist does that too, but it adds an extra layer of power and wonderfulness because when you upload your observation, you first of all are benefiting from the computer vision, the automatic suggestion about what the species is. But when you upload the observation, then your picture goes in front of the eyes of all the iNaturalist users around the world. And you can get incredibly helpful and constructive and educational suggestions about what your species is when you upload your observation. So when you upload your observation, it looks like this. Here's a little photo. You see a little thumbprint of it, thumbnail of it. And then the app will make some suggestions about what you're seeing. Notice that the metadata, including the time and date and the location of your observation, automatically get uploaded with the photo. You have the option to say how much geographic privacy you want your observation to have. Open GeoPrivacy will put a dot on the map where you made your observation, depending on the accuracy of your location services of your device. You can also obscure the GeoPrivacy of your observation. For example, when I'm working on private land that isn't a Nature Conservancy preserve or my own land, I tend to obscure the location of the observation because I just don't want to, I don't know, I feel like it would be rude. If you happen to be working with a photo of a rare, threatened, or endangered species, iNaturalist will automatically obscure the location of that observation so that people can't go and poach it. You also have the opportunity to mark whether your species that you're observing is captive or cultivated. And that's really important because a prime use by scientists of iNaturalist information is to track the locations of organisms on our planet. We know that those locations are changing in response to climate change. And we don't want location information for zoo animals or things that are planted in gardens to confuse the changing reality of where organisms are choosing to put themselves on the planet. So if you take a picture of something in a garden, or if you take a picture of something in a zoo, that is fine. It's okay to do that, but please mark it yes under captive or cultivated. All right, so here's a little bit more about what an observation looks like on the app. So the computer vision is an amazing thing. I cannot explain to you anything about how it works, but it will make suggestions based on its assessment of the photo, and it will tell you why it's making those suggestions. It will tell you, well, we're suggesting all these different species of violets because they're visually similar, and these are the ones that are seen nearby. So you notice that all these look kind of the same. You have the opportunity while you're on your phone and in the app to click on this eye, this little information icon and see more information, more details about each of those species. If I were to click on this eye in the app, it would pull up multiple photos of this species. It would show me where the range of that species was. It would show me where my observation is within the reported range of that species. And it will even get me to the Wikipedia description of that species. So I can do a little bit of shopping around. I can compare, and I can do my due diligence before uploading and say, well, I've done my research and this looks to me most like common blue violet. So I'll click this one and then I'll upload it. And then here's the really amazing part, and the thing that makes iNaturalist so much more powerful than all the other plant identification apps. As I mentioned, your observation goes up in front of the eyes of all the people worldwide who are using iNaturalist. And they can step in and they can say, well, I actually think that this is the sweet violet because such and such. And it's a really supportive, helpful, constructive community. And I have learned so much from the identifiers on iNaturalist. I'm very grateful to them. So iNaturalist has a bunch of great features. I've been showing you what it looks like on a smartphone, but this is one example of how it does even more on the desktop. So this observation, this is the observation page for this eastern painted turtle, one that Anna submitted. And you can see where the other observations of the same species were in this area. You can, this is what it looks like when somebody else comes in and suggests an identification. So Anna posted this turtle, and then Luca Reptile came in and agreed that it was indeed an eastern painted turtle. And that consensus about what the species identification is brings this observation up to research grade. And when an observation is up to research grade, that's when it's eligible to enter the global biodiversity information system, the big database that scientists download information from to do their research. So good pictures are important. For some easily identifiable iconic species like the eastern gray squirrel or the monarch, sometimes one picture is plenty to get a good species identification. However, in most cases, multiple photos per observation will get you a more accurate identification. For example, oak leaves can be kind of confusing. So you might get a good species identification from one oak leaf, but it's best to get multiple leaves. It's even better if you can get a shot of the bark. Better still, if you can get a shot of any flowers or fruits, although you're not likely to see acorns during the City Nature Challenge because it's still spring. And better yet is if you can take a few steps back and get a shot of the overall appearance of the tree. With the smartphone app, it's very, very easy to upload 4 or 5 photos at a time for a single observation for a single organism. And that's a really good best practice to help you get a good species identification. Here's a couple of other tips. For example, for fungi, it's really important and helpful to get a shot of what's underneath the cap. For example, you can see if you look closely at this picture that this one has gills rather than pores. If you don't want to get down there and get your face in the mulch or do a headstand in order to get the underside of the mushroom, and you don't want to knock it over, a good little trick is if you keep a little mirror in your backpack or fanny pack, as I do, then you can easily get a picture of both the top of the cap and the underside of the cap in one shot. With fungi, the kind of stalked fungi that we call mushrooms, it's also important to get a picture of the stalk itself, because some of these stalks have a little ring. Some of these stalks are very scaly. Some of them are kind of drippy. So those are all important things to help you and your community of identifiers get to a species ID. And I mentioned a little bit more about marking something as captive and cultivated if it is not certainly a wild species. So this fox is wild. This dog is captive. Anna's very cute dog. These plants are wild. These plants in the botanical garden or the arboretum, in somebody's garden, or these plants that were planted as landscaping, these are all cultivated. This is actually, it looks like a native dogwood, but we can tell from its context that it was planted there. So not only are you looking for the big obvious organisms like the trees and the weeds and the plants, you'll add an extra layer of fun to your observations if you look for things like bugs and fungi on plants. So here we've got this cute lady beetle, ladybird, and here we've got this tar spot on this maple tree. So iNaturalist is very happy to receive observations that show any evidence of a live organism, preferably a wild organism, that's been alive in the last 100 years. So that means it does not have to be alive today. It also means that iNaturalist is not looking for photos of fossils, but you can have all of these different things uploaded to iNaturalist and get great identifications on them. Bones, shed skin of reptiles, fragments of insect wings, this poor butterfly, but that is distinctive enough to maybe get an identification. Feathers, there are a couple of whole projects just about feathers on iNaturalist, and you can often get a feather down to species if you know the right people who can help you identify. Tracks, holes and burrows, animal scat. Here's some insect frass, and this is some kind of a mammal scat or poop, looks like. All of these things are helpful evidence of life. In addition, the kind of evidence that we submit to iNaturalist to make an observation could be photos, as we've been discussing, but it could also be audio. And you can make audio recordings within the, certainly within the iPhone version of the app. I can't remember if the Android version of the app allows you to make audio recordings within the app. But you can also, even if it doesn't, you can also just use the voice recorder memo thing on your phone to make a recording and then upload it on your desktop. So
Deborah, I can just add, as an Android user, and it is new, but they did add the sound capability within the app, so I can confirm.
Very good.
I haven't used it yet. I haven't used it yet, but I'll try to use it this year.
Okay, great. So one advantage, certainly for iPhone and probably for Android as well, is if I make an audio recording within the iNaturalist app, then the location information comes along with it. If I make a voice recording on my phone and then upload it on my desktop, the location information does not come with the voice recording, and I have to enter that by hand, which means I have to remember where I was when I made the recording. So I recommend making the audio recordings within the app.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So the same thing happened with images, right? Because when I wait to upload at home, then I have to manually put the address for every single picture that I upload. Is there a way to kind of like copy and paste or put a group address?
Yeah, there are definitely some shortcuts, Gina. So have you taken these photos with your smartphone or with a camera?
With my smartphone.
Okay, so the important thing to do is before you take those photos, go into location settings on your phone, not within the iNaturalist app. But there's a place to go to your phone settings and allow your phone to share location information with your photos. That will allow, and it's a little bit different on different versions of the phone, but look at your phone settings, look at location services. It might be under privacy. Do that there, and then that will connect the location to your photos. And then when you upload them, you will not have to enter the location by hand.
Okay, great.
That's a pain. That is a pain.
Yes, that's what I haven't uploaded so many things because it takes me forever to do that. Look at the map. So if for example, I found salamanders and I don't really want to release their location because people get crazy about it.
Yes.
I can still put the geo-privacy and obscure it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Can I add something to that, Deborah?
Yeah.
For those people also that are taking pictures with your cameras, which I do a lot. I use my camera as well as my phone. There is a way to sort of like batch edit, if you will. Like if I took 20 pictures at Burke Lake near my house, I could go in and select those 20 pictures after I upload them into iNaturalist and select on the map Burke Lake, that, you know, circle the lake or whatever, or, you know, the area. And I could do multiple. So I'm not going to each individual photo and writing in the address.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's another way to do it too. But I the way that you suggest, Deborah, for phone thing that's definitely the way to do it. Thanks.
Absolutely, for phones. And yeah, it's a little bit more work with photos. I've started taking, I decided I needed to start using a camera with a zoom lens to take better bird pictures. So I've been uploading actual photos from my camera, and I definitely have found more efficient ways of getting the location in there. So the system gives you some ways to do that. They have an incentive. They want it to be as easy for you as possible, for sure.
I think we have on our resources page, which we can refer people to. We might already have. There is a video that iNaturalist folks made on how one, like, there are these apps out there, the GPS apps or whatever. So it's like a GPS app that you can put on your phone, right? And that, like, say you're walking around a lake and you press start when you go, and then you finish your walk, and then you press stop, and then you have this file, right? And iNaturalist, I'm pretty sure we have referenced a video on it. It's probably 2 minutes long or something like that, where it shows you how you can then upload that. You know, you can match it in your photo. It's a little more work, but, you know, you can match it with your photo software to the GPS so that it can suck up everything that way too.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so you will find, if you search on YouTube, or even there's at the bottom of each iNaturalist page on the desktop, there's a bunch of resources, and there's some really helpful videos showing you how to do different things with iNaturalist. And they're not made by iNaturalist. Most of them are made by the user community, because, you know, with 3 or 4 million people worldwide using this platform, there's a lot of good help out there. All right, great. So we talked, well, no, we didn't. We skipped this slide. So here's just a little bit more to give you ideas about things to look for. All kinds of animals, all sorts of insects, any kinds of plants. Again, if they are landscaping or if they are in a garden, please mark them as captive or cultivated. I manage a native plant garden in Arlington. I don't use iNaturalist to take pictures of the native plants that I planted. I use it more to take pictures of the weeds that pop up, but also all the wonderful bugs and pollinators that come to those native plants. Mushrooms and other fungi, lichens, slime molds, really, again, any evidence of an organism that's been alive in the last 100 years is fair game. So what do you do then after you've made your observation? Well, here's a really important thing. Go back into the system and check your updates, because even during the City Nature Challenge, when things are super, super busy, you have people all over the place who are looking through your observations and either confirming your species identifications or helping to improve your species identifications. And even if you upload something and you don't know what it is, you know it is some kind of a beetle, so you just put beetle, which is, you know, several taxonomical levels away from a species identification. There will be people on iNaturalist who just look for beetles to identify, and they will say, oh, wow, there's a beetle that needs identification. And then they will add their expertise. They may get it down to species. They'll suggest a species identification, and you will get a notification either on your smartphone or on the desktop. You'll get a notification, and then you can go in, look at that species suggestion, and then if you find it plausible, you can agree with it, and you can write a comment that says, thanks for the ID. But if you don't check your updates and notifications, you won't be aware of all the help that the community has given you. There's a comment field on every observation that gives you a chance to ask questions. If somebody makes a species suggestion that you don't understand why they said it was the marsh violet rather than the common blue violet, you could mention that person. You could say, thanks, at TSN, this guy's username. Thanks at TSN. Why do you think it's the marsh violet rather than the blue violet? And I know that TSN is very helpful and constructive, and he will probably respond with something like, because of the hairs on the underside of the petals. So this is an example of the way that you can learn from the user community, even though these folks aren't local. TSN, for example, is in the Northeast someplace, Vermont. When you get comfortable doing so, you can help identify other people's observations. And also, very importantly, tell your friends about iNaturalist. So what are some of the things that you will discover? I have really enjoyed in the COVID times, the challenge of going out and finding something new every day, even in the dead of winter. And I decided I was going to learn more about those funny little bumps and bulges on the dried up oak leaves that I was finding in my garden. So I learned all about galls. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So here are some of the species that were observed the most commonly in the City Nature Challenge in 2021. So many of these are probably familiar to you. These are just some examples of the things that we will be seeing end of April, beginning of May. So here's some examples of the discoveries that people have made with iNaturalist. Luca, a high school student in Arlington, found a salamander in an Arlington park that hadn't been found since 1977 and recorded it on iNaturalist and obscured the location exactly as you said, Gina. And this is what it looks like to other people when you obscure the location of your observation. So you can tell that the salamander was found someplace in the DC metropolitan area, but you can't see exactly where. That dot does not show the actual location. That's just like a signifier that this location is obscured. So that's how we protect sensitive species information. So Carrie, a friend of Anna's and mine, somebody who happens to work with iNaturalist as well, but has been using iNaturalist for years before she got a job with them. She's got a little project in which she observes the species in and around her home in her backyard. And she has found hundreds of species in her little Southeast DC backyard. Stella, another friend of ours, has a stone wall in her neighborhood, and she has been enjoying doing some micro observing of lichen and mosses on that stone wall. Excuse me just a moment. Oh, no, I don't need it. Thank you. Oh, I don't have any. Questions about dinner, sorry. All right, and Vince spent his City Nature Challenge looking for wild plants and animals right outside his door. So let's talk a little bit about what happens with the data that you submit to iNaturalist. So these points are shared openly, become publicly available, and they're used in research and conservation. So an example of how that information is how that data is becoming information and becoming wisdom is if we look at the bloom period, if we look at the phenology of this plant, trout lily, over the years, we can see that in 2016 and 2017, it bloomed earlier than in the years 2014 and 2015. And those are just 4 years, but over time, as iNaturalist is used for longer and longer, we can spot even more significant trends. Another example, some of you have heard of the spotted lanternfly. When we had the first few observations of spotted lanternfly, here it was, just northwest of Philadelphia. It was introduced in Bucks County. And as time passed, watch what happens to this, this map about where the observations are. More and more and more. So this is an example of how all of our individual observations, when aggregated, can provide really significant information about trends. So what's next? Well, you can go to our local website, which is at citynaturechallengedc.org. And as more events are added, we will post them there. There's a page for virtual events like this. There's a page for in-person events. And since we're starting to emerge from COVID, we're seeing more and more organizations offer guided walks for people who want to get together in person, still safely distanced at outdoors events, and make observations in a local park or other managed area. So you could go to the events page and find out information about those. Between now and the City Nature Challenge, starting at the end of April, I recommend that you get out there and practice making observations, practice taking good photos, practice uploading them to iNaturalist, practice checking your updates and learning from the identifications that other people make on your observations, and ask questions within the app or at in-person or other virtual events that you might go to. So let me share a few pro tips with you, because I am at the end of my slides. You can go to my organization's website, nature.org, and you can find a map that shows TNC preserves in the DC metropolitan area. I can name a few. We've got Battle Creek in northern Calvert County. Fraser Preserve is in Northern Virginia. And anytime that you are on the Billy Goat Trail up in C&O Canal National Park, you're actually on a Nature Conservancy preserve. So those are three really great places to use iNaturalist if you want to see something a little bit more wild than your own neighborhood or your own city or county park. Another resources that I use when I want to find new places to explore is I'm very fond of All Trails. I have the All Trails app, and when I'm traveling, I can just pull it up and I can ask it to show me trails near where I am. You can see user reviews of those trails and get an idea of whether it might be nice and quiet or whether I'm likely to be run over by mountain bikes. That's one way I particularly enjoy using All Trails. You can see a little map of where the trail is on a topo map or on an aerial photo, so you can get an idea of the terrain. I find it super, super useful. So for people who have been observing nature for a while, I'd like to point out to you, let me see if this is going to go. Yeah. So I'm just going to drop this, if I can figure out how to do it. I'm going to drop this little link into the chat. And this is a list of what I call bonus species. So bonus species are lesser known things that often occur in close association with common organisms. For example, maybe you knew, maybe you're learning right now, that if you look very closely at an Asian lady beetle, you are very likely to see a fungus growing on the wings called the green beetle hanger. If you look closely at a black locust tree stump, you are very likely to see a kind of shelf fungus on it that's called the cracked cap polypore. And I'm particularly fond of that one because a lot of times it's hard to get a fungus identified to species, but if you see a shelf fungus growing on a black locust, you know it's the cracked cap polypore because it's the only thing that grows in that context. So I'm going to go back into the chat and just put that link there. Feel free to look at that and just get some ideas of bonus species that you can see in the DC metropolitan area. All right. And let's see, go back to my slides. Oops. Did I have anything else that I wanted to talk about? Oh, I seem to have lost my slides. Sorry about that. I think my other thing that I was going to say was I was going to talk a little bit, about having a goal, having a focus. So some people focus just on little tiny things that they can take with a macro lens on their camera or a little clip-on lens on their smartphone. Some people focus primarily on birds. Other people focus primarily on insects or plants. I don't have that kind of focus when I'm using iNaturalist, but I do have a goal. My goal for this year's City Nature Challenge is to try and get 525 species over that 4-day weekend. I got 500 last year. I was pretty pleased with that. In order to get that up a little bit, I know that I need better pictures of birds than my cell phone is going to get for me. So I will be carrying my camera in my effort to break 500 and get 525. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And we've got a few minutes left to talk about just any questions you have or any plans you have for the City Nature Challenge. If there's any particular area that you want to explore or any particular kind of nature that you'd like to focus on for this year's City Nature Challenge, I would love to hear from you. And feel free to take yourself off mute if you would like.
Hi, this is Mary, trying to remember to look at the camera. I've coordinated some City Nature Challenges in the past, probably for about as many years as you've been involved with it, Deborah. And I plan to do so again this year. But what I found is because I use iNaturalist so much in the field, I'm totally inept with it on my computer, and have had people come in and identify and make comments and ask me to do things in my observations that I can't do. So there are parts of iNaturalist that I can't use because I'm not comfortable with it on my lap, on the computer itself, which is where it has so much more functions. So if I don't want to sidetrack us totally, but if you have a minute to pull up iNaturalist on your computer and share a screen with us to show us some of the cool things you can do with iNaturalist on your computer that you can't do because the phone, I know how to do the phone, and you might want to practice that with some people here, and I think that's a great recommendation. I've just, while we've been sitting here, identified the salmon that I had for dinner, the dog that was sitting next to me, and the lime that was in my drink. So so yes, nature is everywhere.
That is for sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. While I am pulling that up, does anybody else have any questions about stuff I've covered so far?
Hey,
I
Deborah,
do.
oh, go ahead, Gina.
Yes. So I just want to be clear in what we need to record. You said we can record cultivated species. It's not just wild, right?
Yeah.
I always thought it was just wild species that we needed to record. So why do we do that for cultivated ones? What's the benefit?
Right. So there's a few, I can make a few comments about that. For one thing, we want iNaturalist to be welcoming. A lot of people, I was looking at observations by somebody who appeared to be about 12 years old. She was making them up in Toronto. And most of the observations were of garden plants. There was a hosta, there was, you know, all kinds of things that you have in a garden. And she was clearly just learning to use the app. And it's capable of identifying those. I mean, it does a good job. So in my comments, I made a little comment, welcome to iNaturalist. I gave a couple of tips. I asked her to mark garden things as captive and cultivated. We want the bar to entry to be low with iNaturalist. iNaturalist is very scalable. It can be used, you know, just occasionally by the casual user. It can be used very in depth by people who have a high degree of expertise. There's just no reason to make you know, an artificial or arbitrary declaration that iNaturalist is not for captive species. In addition, when you're in a highly urbanized area, captive and cultivated species are most of what you'll see. And they have a positive impact on health and mental health and biodiversity in an urbanized setting. Just because a plant is not there as a wild plant doesn't mean it can't attract all kinds of valuable pollinators. So they're an important part of our ecosystem, whether they're captive or cultivated. So those are the comments that I would make about that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Deborah, Deborah, can you, I'll go ahead and tell everybody that Deborah, not only is she a whiz at showing us the desktop part, She leads monthly virtual ID parties that we host, usually the first Tuesday, I think, of every month. The next one's coming up, I think, April 5th. And basically, she has picked different topics each month, themes of things where basically iNaturalist nature nerds like ourselves get together. We pull up a bunch of things in that particular taxa that or a theme that Deborah has chosen, and then we all kind of learn how to ID them together. And so the one that's coming up, I think April 5th, we're going to be focusing on some of last year's observations from the City Nature Challenge. And in a follow-up after the program, we'll be emailing you a bunch of stuff, and I'll include a link to register for more information about that virtual ID party.
Yep. As a matter of fact, they're usually on the first Tuesday, but next month I'm going to have to do it on the second Tuesday because I have a conflict. So it'll be on April 12th this month, or next month, but usually it's the first Tuesday.
Okay.
All right. So can you all see my screen? Okay, great. So you will find your notifications here. And when I look at my notifications, I see that this person confirmed my identification of Phragmites australis, the common invasive reed. I can also see, because I've been working hard on doing identifications for others, I can also see ways that other people have interacted with identifications that I have made on other people's observations. So it's when you're on the desktop, your notifications are up here. I've got a few little Zoom buttons in the way, so let me move those. So what I often do is, let's see, so my observations are here, and let's see, these are some of the mediocre bird pictures that I've been taking with my camera. They're not beautiful like Anna's, but they are identifiable. I can go here and open it up, and I can see that, so you can see here that I figured it was a goldfinch, and that Nancy Lightfoot came in and she agreed that it was a goldfinch, and so did Bill Hubick. He also agreed that it was a goldfinch. And therefore, because everybody agrees that it's a certain species, it's research grade. And you can see the research grade tag here. What I have been spending a lot of time doing in the last few months is being in this identify mode. I go there and I use the filter. So the filter is only available to you on the desktop. The filter, I love it. You can select on any number of criteria. So what I have been doing for fun lately is I open up the filter. I say, I want to identify things that are completely unknown, that the person didn't even put, whether it's a plant or a reptile or a mammal. I'm going for stuff that's completely unknown, and I want to do it I want to see observations from any place in the world. This Virginia is filled out by default because that's one of my settings, but I'm going to get rid of that. And now I am seeing stuff that people have uploaded from all over the world. And some of them I recognize, and some of them I don't. But this one, for example, they should have said it's a plant, but I'll just go ahead and open it up. I can see that this person made the observation here in Texas, and I happen to know what that is. So I'm going to add an ID. Let's see, it's genus Loropetalum, and I am going to, if I can get my little Zoom things out of the way, I'm gonna mark it as captive and cultivated because that is something that people plant, and it's clearly in a garden right by somebody's house. I think it's actually that one. And because, let's see, so I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna, oh, you know what? This is a new user. Sarah E, 1974, is a new user. She's only made 5 observations. So I am also gonna say, welcome to iNaturalist. And then correct my spelling and all of that, because I'm a terrible typist. And I'm also gonna say, please mark garden plants as captive cultivated. Okay, so I've made a nice welcoming comment to a new user. I've given some constructive information, and I also gave her species ID. So I hope she's happy. I've helped her. So I've really been enjoying making IDs like this just to see what is out there. When you're on the desktop, you can also say, I want to just look at stuff in the United States, and I just want to look at hollies. And then it's gonna, oh, and the reason nothing is coming up is because I have to go in and I need to get rid of the unknown that's in the filter. So now it is just showing me hollies from all over the United States. And now that my brain is focused on hollies, I can pretty quickly go through. You know, if I didn't care quite so much about accuracy, I would just zoom here and hit agree, agree, agree for all the Ilex opacas, because I can recognize that really easily. But that's a little bit risky, because when you're in this mode, you can't even see where it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it. Now that I know it's in New England and I'm getting a bigger picture of it, I can definitely confirm with confidence that that is our Native American holly. So I've confirmed that. I'm going to close it, and I can easily scroll through here. I'm not as comfortable with vomitoria, which is more to the south of here, but I can easily go through and I can confirm ones that I'm confident with, or I can open up ones that I want to get a closer look at. I'd like to take a closer look at that. Because it's right here in the mid-Atlantic and I'm getting a closer look at the leaves, I can confidently agree that that is Chinese holly. So those are just a couple of examples of how much more you can see about each observation and the richer ways that you can interact with the observations when you're on the desktop. So is there anything in particular you'd like to see while I've got this desktop version open?
Yeah, I want to know how to add a location. Is one thing someone asked me to do that I couldn't figure out how to do. How to add a location to my observation?
Okay, how to add a location to your observation.
Yeah.
So your observation, right? And it's because so do you have an observation in the system already? It just doesn't have a location?
I think there was some question about the location, and I don't remember exactly why. It was just something that came up that I found that I couldn't do. So I was curious as to where is the location in the observation.
Okay, good. Well, I'll just open up my bird observation. And I had to add this location kind of by hand because it was from my camera. And I'm going to go to edit. Is this where I do it? If you go to edit, then it gets you to this map, and I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm going to have to, yeah. Okay, so that one, I just actually moved the thing without meaning to, but I would zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and I would drop the point right there once I found the location. So did you see how that worked?
Okay, so it looks like you just clicked on the map and it dropped a
yeah. I had to, I'm using a trackpad, so I had to like reverse pinch on the trackpad, kind of like you do on a smartphone screen. But if I'm remembering correctly, I was right around, I was right around here. I was on the C&O Canal, and I clicked on the spot where I remembered making the observation. And it added that dot. And then once I've done that, I click that to get out of the huge map mode.
Back up and do that again.
Okay. So when I'm in the edit version,
that's full screen. Okay.
Yeah, I went like that to make it full screen, and then to make it little again, right up here. Can you see that toggle?
Yeah, now I see it's labeled. Right, labeled. Okay.
Yep. So hit that. That gets me back to the page, and I resave it.
Okay, so the other thing is very simple, which is, okay, this is obviously not a captive goldfinch. So,
Mhm.
but where is that note in the observation, whether it's captive or
Yeah.
wild?
So if it were a captive goldfinch, then I would scroll down past all this stuff.
Wow, that's way down on the page. I've never been that far.
There's a lot. There is so much on the desktop. And I would, for organism is wild, I would give it the thumbs down
If it were a
if it
cat.
were. But since it is really wild, I'm going to cancel that thumbs down. There we go. And there's a bunch of other stuff you can do. Yeah, I've not actually used very many of these other
Wow.
things, but yeah.
Can you stop there?
Get
Can you stop there for a second, Deborah?
Yeah, where?
The experts, the people there, see the top
Yeah.
see the top identifiers.
Yep.
What's great is we were looking at Luca Reptile earlier, who made that salamander observation. Luca Reptile, while I don't even know if he's still in high school because he's been in high school for a couple of years now. He's probably graduated, but he is a herpetology master. Like he just knows everything. So if I have, because this is a social platform, you can look up people, you can follow people, you can look and see who are the top people that are identifying this particular species. And I noticed with all my herpetology observations that Luca was always the top one. And so there's a comment area where I can do the @ Luca in the comment there and say, at Luca Reptile, hey, is this a spotted turtle? And then he will, people ask him stuff all the time, and he, over time, he'll get back to be like, yes, I agree with you, or I disagree with you, and this is why. And so so you're basically interacting with these total strangers, but they know a lot more than you do about herps,
So back up and show us how we would do that, how we would contact Luca, or you for that matter, Barbara.
Yep. So in this example, because it's a goldfinch and it's showing me the top identifiers of this. So Greg Lasley. So if I really felt like I needed help, I would go at Greg Lasley, and then it's gonna pull up the people with a name like that.
Oh, wow, right there in the box.
Yeah, right in the box. Yeah. So what I often do is my friend at Alleghenies, he helps me. Yeah, he helps me with a lot of bird stuff. So just tag him like that. And I would go like this. I'm not going to save this because I don't actually need help with this.
You don't need help with this one, obviously.
Yeah.
This is how you do it.
Yeah,
okay,
that's how you do it.
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's amazingly cool. You can also see what projects this observation is in. This observation got automatically scooped into these projects based on its geolocation. So Maryland Biodiversity Project scoops in stuff that was made in Maryland.
Wow.
This one was made within the boundaries of C&O Canal Park. And this project, I got scooped into that because I joined the project. This is the Maryland Area Garden, I don't know, some kind of, I forget what it stands for, but it's a really wonderful Facebook group about environmentally conscious gardening. And they set up a project and I joined it. So some projects you get automatically scooped into based on the time and location of your observation. The City Nature Challenge is an example of that kind of project, and then other projects you have to join. So take home message for you is when you do get on the desktop, pay attention to these tabs across the top. If you want to look at your observations, you go to this tab. Okay.
And then and I see there's different ways you could list them. You could do them by map.
Yes.
Grid, or what does it look like on list?
On list, it looks like this.
Okay, so that looks more like what I'm familiar with. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, there's so many buttons in this that you have never noticed. And if you just take your time.
Well, see, the thing is it's like even that page, back up and show me how you actually got to that page in iNaturalist.
So I got to that by at the very top going to my observations. And then in my observations, I have these 3 different ways to view them. I can use the list view, which quickly shows me whether it's at research grade, when I observed it, where, and when I added it. But if I really want to get a closer look at the pictures without all that metadata,
Yeah,
then this grid view is
that's
the one
nice.
to do. And then if I just want kind of a distribution of all my observations, if I want to have fond memories of my travels, then I can look at this map view and I can remember, oh yes, I saw so many cool things in Portugal. I wish I could go back.
Let's go
Yeah,
on a trip.
yeah. So if you want to open up an individual observation, then the grid view is helpful for that. But you can also the filter. The filter is available in almost any mode. When you open up that filter, man, you just have access to so much power.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, do that part again.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So the filter is right up here.
Oh,
See the
okay.
filter?
Oh, okay. That's not where it was on the other screen. Okay.
It kind of moves around a little bit
Yeah,
from
yeah,
time
no,
to
that's
time.
okay. But it's okay. So when you click filter, then it brings up that thing. And that was so cool because I put some things on that I noticed in my Tuckahoe Park observations where I'm park steward,
Mhm.
where it was a gall, but
Yeah.
iNaturalist couldn't tell me what gall it was. So it's under this category, that unknown category. But I
Yeah.
wish somebody would do what you did and go through and who knows those galls and identify them for
I
me.
will tell you how to get your gall observation in front of the people who know about galls.
Oh,
And
sweet.
that is to, this is bogus, but I'm just gonna do it with this goldfinch. I am going to go to projects
Mhm.
and I am going to add it to galls of North America. And if this were actually a gall, it would be on
Yeah.
a plant, and it would be helpful for me to say what plant it was. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
would say it. I don't know what kind of oak it's on, but it's on an oak. So I type that in, and I add it to the project. And again, I'm not going to save this I'm not going to save these edits to this
Because
observation
obviously the
because
goldfinch is not a
a
gall,
goldfinch is not a gall. But
but it is on an oak tree. Okay.
when you add it to the Galls of North America project, that
Yeah.
is going to get in front of some incredibly knowledgeable people.
Oh, sweet. So you
And
add it to the project. Okay.
another pro tip about galls is you can make a lot of headway in identifying your own galls if you go to this amazing website called gullformers.org. And that it works both on the desktop and on your phone. And we actually have a recording of a session that we did on this at ID Night.
I can share the link. I can share the link to the gall session.
Yeah, cool. So you would say, well, I'm actually not really prepared to do a demo of this on the desktop, but go to gullformers.org, play with it. For galls, get a picture of, like, suppose this is the gall on the leaf. Okay, get a picture of the gall on the top of the leaf, get a picture of what the back of the leaf looks like, use your little macro lens, get as close as you can, and definitely either remember or have your photos make it very clear what the host plant is, because most galls are specific to a genus or a species, and if you don't know what the host plant is, at least a genus, you're not going to have a very good chance of getting it identified. So those are a few tips about gall identification. Okie doke.
Mary, you asked the right person about galls because Deborah is all about the galls. I love it.
Galls were my mental health therapy during the COVID winters, because you can find them at all times of year. I mean, I really did. I went into my garden. There was an area where some old oak leaves had blown into a corner, and I picked up those oak leaves and I'm looking at them for galls. And I mean, I met new organisms that day, you know? It was so cool to find a new to me form of life just by looking at these old dead leaves in the corner of my yard. It reminded me that there's life everywhere. And it really helped with that COVID despair.
I
Yeah.
encourage everybody to look for galls, especially because we have so many oak trees
Yeah.
in our area here anyway,
Yeah.
to just look at an oak and you'll see a gall.
Yep, absolutely. And not only will you see a gall, but if you go to gall formers, you can make really good headway on identifying the gall.
That's
So,
cool. So do they, I'll have to play on that site to figure out how it works. Okay.
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, you don't always get the answer, but you often get the answer, and you always have fun looking and just being amazed at the diversity of life that's all around us, even here in little suburban Arlington. All right, what other questions do any of you have? I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all of you. Oh, hi, Laura. Any other questions for me or for Anna?
And hi, Laura. And Cher, Deborah. Cher is the woman, the friend I was telling you about that I met through the City Nature Challenge. She actually wrote an article about it for the Prince William Times last year, and that's how we connected. Cher, I was telling her your son's name because I think it's so awesome. And so, yeah, so I'm glad you're able to join us tonight.
Hello.
Thank you. I learned a lot, and I hadn't seen those filters before, and I'm a fan of gulls too. So, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Cher.
Yeah, the filter is just beyond awesome. You can do so many things. Sometimes I'm in identify mode and I say, I just feel like identifying common speedwell, so I type that into the filter and then it shows me all these things that people thought were common speedwell, and most of them are, but some of them aren't. But it kind of helps, for example, speedwells, they look all kind of similar and there are a lot of them, and they're all really little. But when I'm just looking at speedwells with the help of the filter, it helps me easily pick out the ones that aren't the suggested species. So there's just tons and tons of ways you can use it. It's super fun.
And I hope, Cher, that you can join some of the virtual ID parties that we do, because Deborah's like whizzing around in those filters, like while we're doing those virtual ID parties that we do.
Yeah, I try not to go too fast.
No, I mean, I didn't mean that whizzy. I mean, just like, I just sit there with my mouth open because I don't do enough identification. And I've been on many of the virtual ID nights, and like, I learned something new each time. Like, she shows us some new tool or something.
Yeah, there's some tricks. And I mean, mostly I want people to know about the filter. I want people to know of its existence. I want them to use it, and the more you play around with it, the more ideas you get about stuff you could do. And it's very, to me, I mean, there's so many things that are magical about iNaturalist. The computer vision is amazing and magical, but the real magic is the community of people who are helping each other to learn about the diversity of life on Earth. And so one of my motivation in doing these ID nights is to help people feel more confident doing identifications, because it was when I started using iNaturalist and people came in and helped me with identifications that I got so hooked. So I want all the new iNaturalist users that are going to be flooding in during the City Nature Challenge to have that same magical, positive experience that I can give them now by helping them with their IDs, and that some of you can give them. If you will get onto the desktop and get into identification mode, you can be really helpful to a lot of people. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. It was good to meet you all. And
I have one quick comment. If your email, I have the I have the Eventbrite registration. If and Mary, I put a little note, a direct message to you, like if your email doesn't match your name in any way, can you put it in the chat so that I can make sure that you get the follow-up email, so I can match people to Cher. I have yours. I don't know if Candy is Candy Quinn. Is that Candy Quinn from Fairfax Master Naturalist? You're the only Candy. You're the only Candy I know, but maybe there's lots of Candies in here. Is it Candy Quinn? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, and I know Laura, and then yeah. So if just as long as I get everybody's email, that'll be great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Get out there, practice. As soon as
Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. That was great.
Okay, and just one quick question. Anna, please say your last name for me.
Oh,
'Cause I
sure.
missed that.
Sure, absolutely. It's Ka'ahanui. Ka'ahanui. So you have to
Kahanui.
you have to pronounce everything. So just think of an aha moment, ka, aha, and then nui.
Ka'ahanui. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.
Okay.
See you later.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.